This podcast is an Aiden Production and cannot be reused in any way unless you have the written consent from Aiden Productions.
All right, another question. Was I your favorite student?
Well,
The Aiden Productions Podcast.
You mentioned earlier you interviewed Larry Bird.
oh yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Aiden Productions podcast. We are here with Mr. Spellman, and if you would like to know the answer to that question, well, you're going to have to keep watching. So you went to college and you wanted to be a writer?
I went to college originally to become a teacher, but when I was going to Bridgewater State, I'd always loved journalism, especially sports writing. So what happened is I got a job at a newspaper while I was in college to help support and pay bills. And when I got out of college, they offered me a job, so I took it. So I had majored in English, secondary minor, and my minor was secondary education rather. So I'd intended to be a teacher, but I just, kind of the fate led me into journalism for about 35 years.
So you went into journalism for 35 years. What companies did you work for?
Well, the company I worked for different companies, but by the time I was done there, we had all become one big company. Started out with like the Mariner papers over in Marshfield, and I jumped a couple years into doing that. And I was sports writer, news, and all that, and then I got a job at the Brockton Enterprise as a reporter covering state and local politics, and in some sports still. And I had another job because, believe it or not, journalism doesn't pay a lot. I did some security work, but anyway, I also wrote for Celtics Pride magazine. When you're a reporter, you're always looking for other jobs to supplement your income. So at the end, Brockton Enterprise, Patriot Ledger, Cape Cod Times, all the Mariner papers, all these papers I'd written for over the years were now just one big company. So yeah,
Nice. And then after that, you stopped doing it, and then you went into substituting?
Yeah, what happened is my company gave me a buyout, meaning they were going to pay me not to work there anymore because they wind up saving money on like unemployment and all that. So they made that offer to just about all of us. They accepted my buyout, so they basically paid me not to work, which was nice for a while. And but I started looking. I'd already thought, because the newspaper industry, was kind of in a steep decline, and I'd been working marketing for the newspaper and still doing some writing, so that the money was pretty good until even before COVID hit. And then when COVID hit, it just went downhill really fast. So I started looking to teaching even before I decided to leave the company, and I was applying all over the place and had a couple interviews, but I really liked Marshfield the best of all the offers I got. And what they offered me was substitute, and it turned into a regular position last year.
So the teacher that was the sworn teacher left to substitute another teacher?
Yeah, to go, and that was, she left because she came out as a science teacher, but it happens with a lot of teachers that I work with right now. They've got a very similar story to mine. It's that you've almost got to work in a building for a while to kind of build your rep, and they get to know you, you get to know them, decide if it's a good fit. Sarah moved for a short time into science teacher, and I took her spot, which was really nice because I hadn't expected to get my own class when I first started there, but instantly started in that position. And Aiden was one of my students, and I taught kind of a life skills course with a heavy emphasis on writing. So
which isn't a class anymore.
It's not a class, yeah. It was something the school brought in because they had a kind of it'd be a long explanation, I'll make it short. They kind of had to plug in some different classes with the type of schedule we had, and somebody had found that, thought it sounded good, and I thought it was good. I kind of wish they had kept it.
Yeah, so what was this like? It was organization,
writing skills, how to balance your time, how to set up a binder to stay organized, prioritizing what you thought, always do the most important things first, and that left room for the other things that weren't as important. Just being able to have that pecking order of what was most important to do, and just a lot of it was just organizational though.
Yeah. And then did you give out? You didn't really give out a lot of homework, right? Like just the journal entries.
Journal entries, yeah, I gave
journal
journal entries. No, they were only homework if you didn't get them done in class, and generally speaking, I gave enough time for students to do them, because the way I like to teach, I like to interact with the students and kind of, help develop critical thinking, so that I was kind of involved in the process, I think, of what they were going to be writing. So I think most of them had an opportunity to finish it before the end of class.
And because he was a almost quarterly teacher, but did you teach all year? You taught the short class all year, or was it quarterly?
Well, it was a half-year course, so I actually started right before the first half ended, the first semester ended. So I had the kids that Miss had for 1 week, and then I started with the second half of the year. It wasn't quarterly, it was a half-year class.
Yeah, because I remember having Eugenio for the first couple, or I had her for the whole entire. Did I have her for that?
No, you didn't have it. You might have had it for science.
Yeah, I had her
You had it
because
for science.
She was filling in for the teacher that
was out on leave because of COVID. Yeah.
So you taught every single person in 7th grade right now.
Yeah, pretty much. If they were there last year, I had them at least once, a couple times. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, and it's funny. You walk through the halls, and so many of them will say, "Mr. Spellman." I'm like, "Yeah, I can't quite remember your name, especially now that people aren't wearing masks." So it's like, I know who you are, but yeah, it's nice though.
So you started journaling, and then you stopped, and then you started teaching. You've been teaching for the past 2 years now?
It's been a year and a half. I started in Marshfield around January 15th, shortly after you guys came back from Christmas vacation. And so, yeah, I've been doing it a little bit less than a year and a half.
And it's only been Marshfield?
Only been Marshfield, yeah. I mean, I did look at some other opportunities in the summer. It's some schools for high school English teaching, middle school teaching, and had some follow-up calls. But then Marshfield actually called me and asked me if I'd come back in this role. So I thought there were some other opportunities at Marshfield after I did this, and so I chose Marshfield, and I'm happy I did.
Yep. And did you? So when you were going into teaching, would you think you would be a teacher, or would you think you would be just a substitute?
At first I was really hoping to just get in and be a teacher, but then I kind of learned that's not necessarily the way it works, because you've got to kind of pay your dues a little bit, and of course for most paying their dues they become building subs. Like a lot of you'd be surprised, a lot of the teachers at Furnace Brook actually started out exactly like I did, but when they were starting out like that, a lot of them were doing their 20s or maybe their later 30s after the kids were getting a little older and stuff. I'm doing it in my 50s, so it was kind of and I'm used to making a certain amount of money and all that, and building sub isn't quite as much, so it was a little bit not disappointing. I haven't been at all disappointed by anything, but it was just I had been hoping for a regular teacher's job, but the fact that it's played out the way it has actually been a really nice experience for me, because I've gotten to know so many young people like yourself and had a little bit of exposure to different grades, and it's kind of helped me formulate what I'd like to do.
Yep. And do you is being a teacher do you think being a teacher is boring, because you have to do the same thing every single day and then do it the next year and then the next year every single day, the same thing, and have the same lesson? Or do you think
teachers, yeah, I know that's how some of the teachers do. They'll use the same teaching
But you're
plan.
Substituting, so you could be science then English.
Yeah. Right now there's no 2 days look alike for me.
Yeah.
But I think you're talking about other teachers too. Yeah, because I mean, I don't think I would ever be content doing the same lessons, I'm going to just recycle this. I want to come up with different talking points every time I do it, just to not only make it interesting for myself, but maybe give students an opportunity to respond differently. Now, I'll ask you. You had I was you one of my students. I really like classroom discussion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I want everybody to contribute. I don't force anybody, but it's I think we learn better like that. So The reason I say it'd never be exactly the same way 2 years in a row, I might be teaching similar content, but every classroom you get a different type of conversation. I'd ask one class the same question as another class, and I'd have a completely different discussion. And so no, the shorter answer to your question is no. I have not been bored a single day.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
so like I feel like elementary would be like I know you still do it like every single day and probably do the same lesson, but would you rather teach multiple classes a day, or would you rather teach like the same kids all day and go from subject to subject?
I think ultimately what I would be more satisfying would just to be like my background. I have a license now as an English teacher. When I left the newspaper, I didn't have the license. It took me, I still had to take the MTEL test, which you need for teacher's license. I had to take 2 of them because of COVID. You couldn't take them at first. So I didn't get my second test until the summer. So at that point, it was tough for me to go out and apply for some of the jobs I was looking at. But anyway, so no, I would like to teach English ideally. Junior high would be great. High school would be great. And to see the same kids day after day, and only because I think you build up a different kind of rapport with the students and the kids, and you can have a greater impact. I mean, it's fun going into classes and having the kids respond well to you. You joke around with them a little bit, but they're also learning. That's fun, but I think ultimately I'd kind of like to have my own class for stability.
Yeah. All right. Now we are going to be getting into the sports.
Oh.
All right, so we are now getting into basketball first. How do you feel about the Celtics lately? I mean, they've been winning every single game, and
yeah, like what are they, like 22-4, or is it 23-4, something like that in their last 27 games?
Yeah, they're like 46 and like 20, something like that.
Yeah, and just the fact that, I mean, back in January, I think they were like 11. January 6th, they lost somewhere around there, and they were like 11 games under 500, I think. And now to see that they're like 16 games over, a game and a half out of first place in the conference, out of the top seed, it's just been amazing. And I've always been a big Celtics fan. I covered them for 5 years for Celtics Pride magazine. So I interviewed Larry Bird and Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish and all those guys. But I've always been a huge fan. So seeing, and I kept saying, Mr. Cassavale was a teacher at the school as well. He and I are a huge Celtics fan, so we talk about him every day. And we're saying this. We know this team is better than this. We've been saying it for a while. So just to finally see it all come into being, they're healthy. They've developed a team chemistry, and just they turned up the defensive pressure unbelievably.
Do you think? Why do you think the teams in like the 2020 team with like Kemba and like everybody, why do you think this team is better? Do you think it's Brad Stevens, or do you think it's the new coach? Like, I think Brad Stevens was kind of a defense-minded, defense first coach too. I don't think he had the personnel to play that style as well. Like Kemba wasn't shutting anybody down. He was 5'11". He always had like knee problems. And before that, when we had, I'm just forget the guy with Brooklyn now, Kyrie. He could play defense, but kind of only when he was interested in doing so. Now the new coach is benching Peyton Pritchard until the second quarter. He used to be on the bench squad, or he started the season on the bench squad because, I mean, Brad Stevens literally started him, and now. Yeah,
when he was hurt. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think Pritchard had to earn his place because it's a new coach. Yeah. And let's face it, he's not a real big guy. I mean, he's like a gnat. He just, it's impossible to get around the guy, because he plays such good defense, but it's easy to post him up because he's not that big. So he kind of had to figure out a way to at least complement the defense, not be a detriment. Like, unfortunately, Isaiah Thomas scored a lot, but he was a detriment defensively, and Kemba was kind of a detriment defensively. Took a lot of charges, but so no, I just think the big difference this year is that switching defense they played early on and it wasn't working. now it's working because they stuck with it. They didn't give up on it. You see the Celtics switching. Every time there's a pick, they switch, and they do it really well.
And Pritchard had a great game last night.
Oh, I love Pritchard. He's been like my favorite player on the court to watch. I'm so glad you brought him up, and I love the fact that he's found a role.
Yeah, and last night Robert Williams had like 2 in a row blocks, and Grant Williams is great in the corner.
A good team always has role players that understand their roles, and that's what Pritchard does. He's a shooter that's also going to defend and look to move the ball. Williams is going to spot up and play really tough defense, right? Even White, who's been like a 15, 16-point scorer.
Which Jaylen Brown and Derek White just play great together.
Yeah, so it's and then of course you got Tatum and Brown are probably 2 of the top 15 players in the NBA. So, yeah.
And I mean, all Jaylen Brown has to do is throw it up off the backboard to Grant Williams and.
Rob Williams. Yeah.
You mentioned earlier you interviewed Larry Bird.
Oh yeah. Yep, for Celtics Pride magazine. I wrote for 5 years.
So you talked to him or?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was there. Interviewed him.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Was it face to face or was it he was like?
Once or twice, in the locker room, I'd be the only reporter talking to him, or maybe after a practice. Although usually with Larry Bird, this was toward the end of his career, he had a swarm of reporters around him. So I'd be one of 10 people holding my tape recorder up or his microphone up to his mouth. Yeah. But I'd ask him questions. He'd answer them. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Baseball is back,
Yep.
and how do you feel about baseball? Do you like?
Well, first of all, baseball was my primary sport to play growing up. Definitely, I have 4 sons, so I coached a lot of baseball, Plymouth Babe Ruth, Plymouth Little League, AAU baseball, did a lot of that. So it's my favorite game to be around, in a dugout, talking to players, strategies, all that. I can't watch 3 innings in a row on television. It moves so slow. It's on in the background at my house a lot, but it's just. I probably only watched about 10 or so Red Sox games last year. I like it. I follow it. I like that they had a nice bounce back year, and I like that Alex Cora kind of got a second chance. But not a huge. But I follow them. I know who the main players are.
Do you think they went downhill when they lost Mookie Betts?
Yeah, that one killed me. That's probably among the primary reasons I lost interest last year. I was annoyed.
Yeah.
Because the Red Sox were, Los Angeles is a big market team. I said, well, so are the Red Sox. They could have afforded Mookie Betts.
Yeah, just like how Patriots lost Tom Brady. It's the same thing.
You're a big market, yeah.
All right, let's get into football. How do you think the Patriots are doing?
Well, they haven't done much in the offseason. I mean, they did bring back Malcolm Butler, which I liked. I didn't like how he left town, not playing in that Super Bowl game. So I kind of, sometimes I just root for athletes based on personality. So it's good to see a guy get a second chance, like Alex Cora did with the Red Sox. So I like that. I just don't think they did much to complement their receiving corps. They've spent all these draft picks and all this money on high drafted tight ends, and then they went out and signed 2 high priced free agent tight ends, and they really haven't got a lot out of them. So it's a little frustrating.
And they got rid of Tom Brady. Tom Brady retired, then came back. Within 2 months, he got bored.
He's too competitive to retire when especially what I think that might have been his best passing yard game season ever. So I was kind of surprised when he said he was retiring. So I guess I'm not surprised he came back.
Did you get as mad as with Mookie Betts getting traded? Did you get as mad as Tom Brady getting traded?
Tom signed and so did Mookie. They both signed. I got madder about Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
Because first of all, he's not even in his prime yet, and the Red Sox could have afforded him, whereas the Patriots. Tom's at the end of his career. You kind of understand how Belichick works, thinking, okay, maybe he's got 1-2 years, good years left. I think we don't want to commit a ton of money to one position, then not be able to sign these other guys. I'm not saying I agree with Belichick. If it were up to me, I would have signed Brady. But I kind of understood that one a little bit, but I did not understand Mookie Betts.
And all right. How do you feel about Tyreek Hill going to the Dolphins?
Well, the Dolphins certainly gave up a lot to get him. I mean, maybe he was looking for such a big payday. It's similar to the Brady situation. He's looking for such a big payday in his next contract that Kansas City said, you know what, we're not going to pay that much to a receiver because the shelf life of receivers in the NFL is generally not more than 6, 7, 8 years before they really start to get banged up. And those are your top guys. I think they said it's just not worth committing that kind of money to a wide receiver. And so I think Miami becomes a lot scarier team since Miami beat the Patriots both times they played them last year. I definitely think the Patriots are now looking up at Miami because Tyreek Hill is one of the top 10 game changers in the league. So yeah, I think good for Miami for a couple years, and then good to Kansas City because we got those draft picks. You know? Yeah, and they still have, in my opinion, the best quarterback in football, Kansas City. I know you might disagree. I think he's the best. Don't even say Brady. Don't even say Aaron Rodgers. My opinion. Who do you think's better?
Tom Brady?
Not anymore. He's not as versatile. He was great in that system.
3 years ago.
Yeah, maybe.
Now.
No. Like I said, my opinion. I just think Mahomes does so many things well. Okay. We'll agree to disagree.
I mean, you can watch the highlight reel, but he doesn't do it every single time.
No, well, sometimes defenses do a real nice job scheming to take away the run, keep him in the pocket, but that opens up other things. So I just think overall he's still young. Like I said,
do you think he'll be as good as Brady?
I don't think he'll put up the numbers Brady has. No, because I don't think he's going to play till he's 45 years old. I think because he likes to run, he's probably going to get hurt. He already does get hurt.
Yeah. All right, that will do it for football. All right. Hockey. I do not really keep up with hockey. I know the Bruins are doing well, but I do not keep up there. I remember making you many wallpapers of Chara and everyone.
Yeah, you did.
Yep, and Soar, so.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, I do watch the Bruins. I'm not a diehard fan. I love the way Brad Marchand plays. He's a little chippy sometimes. I don't like that as much, but I just love the ferocity he plays with in general. And Bergeron, such an easy player to like and respect. They've just got nice role players. Charlie Coyle, local boy from Weymouth. He's kind of found a role there now that is like a second, third line center who, when they lost Krejci, he stepped in nicely for him. McAvoy's a really exciting young defenseman. And like I said, they've got the guys who just do the job. And of course, Pasternak is a little streaky, but he still can light it up like just about nobody else in the NHL. Great shot. And then Swayman is really, He's a solid goaltender, makes the saves he needs to, and he's the type you're not going to go far in the NHL unless you have an NHL caliber, top caliber goalie, and I think he's showing that he can be that. Yeah.
Do you think out of all the teams that we just talked about, do you think through every sport, do you think they all have a chance in the finals?
I think the Celtics definitely have a shot in the finals. I don't think the Red Sox have enough pitching. It'd be nice if Sale came back, but I think the days where we used to think we could count on Sale are over. He's just been hurt too much. So I don't think the Red Sox have enough pitching. I don't think the Patriots have enough anymore. But it's Belichick, never completely count out a Belichick team. In the Bruins, hockey's a funny game. It's always like a team will get hot at the right time. I think if I had to rate them in terms of winning a championship, none of them would be favorites, but Celtics would definitely be number one, then the Bruins, then the Red Sox. So I still think the Red Sox have a nice lineup and a real good coach.
I think Mac Jones needs to get better. I mean, if we can get some wide receivers.
That's the whole thing. Aguilar wasn't that good. And Aguilar, they paid a lot of money for him, and Bourne was better than him. So in the tight ends, I thought they'd get more from the tight end. So that disappointed me, because he made the passes he needed to. So I'm thinking the guy's not getting open. Was it the schemes they were running? And the thing that scares me a little bit about the offense is they really haven't improved, except they got James White back. Hopefully he's healthy. The thing that scares me a little bit is now we don't have McDaniel as offensive coordinator anymore.
And I think the Raiders,
and I think he may have had a lot to do with Mac Jones' success in the first year. Hopefully I'm wrong, but hopefully Mac Jones progresses like like it looks like he could.
Yep. All right, now time for an ad. All right, our ad for today is Glynn Brothers Traditional Irish Turf. All right, if you go to southshoreirish.com is your premier online source for genuine Irish turf products. It's a U.S.-based supplier, and we know the people that run it, and it also sells Irish turf and hats. Now, if you're living in the U.S. and looking for a genuine Irish turf or peat fire to chase away those chilly nights, and if you would need some Irish turf or a nice zip code hat, make sure to go to southshoreirish.com and you can find them. Glynn Brothers, Traditional Irish Turf. All right, Mr. Spellman.
Yes.
That was amazing. So now, was I your favorite student?
Oh yeah, of course you were. You were no doubt.
See, I guess that just tells
Yeah,
you.
you were a lot of fun in class. When I got you to pay attention, you were great.
Now, what was I doing?
I don't know. A lot of times I didn't see your eyes.
Yeah,
You were hard at work looking at your computer. Let's just go with that.
I was actually working on like this kind of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, so, well, did I know you were gonna be here?
Here with you, yeah.
But, I mean, if I was your favorite student, what did I do in class? Was I like?
You contributed to class discussion. You always had good stuff to say. I liked reading a lot of your clever journal entries. And you're just, you're a fun guy. It's, the thing is, you know me, and I do like to have fun with the kids. I don't like to yell. I hate it when I have to yell. Sometimes you've got to get kids' attention by raising the decibel level of your voice, but I want to have fun exchanges because I honestly think young people learn better when they're comfortable and they're engaged in a good conversation as opposed to just reading 200 pages and give me a book report.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you need to do that too. Yeah. Maybe not.
All right. What do you want to talk about next? Because
I don't know, some of the things maybe I've learned since I started teaching. It's like, because I know one of the questions you asked me when we were talking before, is there anything like a lesson plan I came up with that I thought worked really good and maybe something that didn't work so good? And I can tell you this is a building sub. There are probably a lot more I don't feel good about than ones I might feel really good about. Only because when you're the building sub, if you say, I think I'm going in to maybe teach 7th grade English, and all of a sudden I'm teaching like 8th grade math, and I don't want to just walk into a class and say, okay, everybody go on a Canvas, do your computer and do this. I want to see what's in it and try to engage them. So sometimes it's my fault. Sometimes I don't prepare as well as I need to because it's kind of last minute, and I'll go in there and I don't really help lead a conversation, or I don't really have the answers. Now, sometimes I haven't had time to prepare, but other times I'm like, oh, I should have prepared better. So, yeah, but you learn from that. I always want to go into a teaching situation feeling like most questions that might be asked, like I try to anticipate what they might be, I might at least be able to point them in the right direction. The classes I'm proud of, like I think some of the English classes I'm doing right now, because I'm a regular sub for like 2 weeks, I'm able to actually plan it. So when you're planning it, it's like it's in your mind what you want, directions you want to go, types of things you want to say, types of questions you want to ask. I feel good about those. Mm-hmm. And I was really happy with the way a lot of the SOAR classes went last year, because I would look at the material we were supposed to cover. I'd add my own talking points and I'd ask questions, and sometimes the questions would draw out really good answers, and it's like you could almost sometimes see like a light bulb go on over a young person's head, and it's like, oh, I think they just got something good out of that, and that's those are the things. Those are the things teachers really love to look for. Like, they just learned something useful, or more important, I think they want to learn this. That's when you feel really good as a teacher. Yeah.
And so what's the difference between a building sub and just a sub that subs for, like, is a building sub, like, because I remember one of my social studies teacher is he used to be like a permanent sub, so somebody like was out for a
Same
while.
type thing, yeah. I call it building sub, permanent sub. Well,
Permanent sub is like longer, and building sub is like,
well, I'm considered a permanent sub
because like you sub
because
for,
I
like,
sub every day, no matter what. There's always something to do. If they don't have a teacher out I have to fill in for, I help with some of the special ed things. I assist those teachers. I go into classrooms and assist, but mostly school this size, teachers needing personal days and doing things. I generally have a pretty good idea just about every day where I'm going to be.
And yeah, so heard it here from Mr. Spellman. You might be wondering why we're in a different set. We had to do this like right after school. So school ends at like 2:20, and we had to come here around 3. So we have about a 30-minute podcast, and that's our set for today. We're still in the MCTV studio, and I'll see you guys next time. Fade out.
This podcast is an Aiden production and cannot be reused in any way unless you have the written consent from Aiden Productions.